And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Soul Survivor podcast. Ryan and I are back to recap Survivor 49, episode 4. Happy to be back, Ryan. How are you?
Dylan, I am good. I'm glad to be back. I know we've been busy, but I'm excited to talk about this episode. I thought it was a pretty good tribe swap episode. We love a good tribe swap. And first tribe swap, I think actually since Winners at War, we've had two tribes. So it's been almost, 5 years since we've seen two tribes, which is crazy. So
Yeah, my biggest takeaway from the episode, I was literally going to say, is like, get back to tribes immediately. Like,
yeah.
I think, I'm tired of being late into the pre-merge and it's 3 people on a tribe or 4 people on a tribe. And it's just like, what's going to happen when it's and less tribe dynamics. It's nice to see a 7-person, 2 7-player tribes, one loses. You still get a 7 people going to tribal. Like, I like the 2 tribes. I wish that season 50 was going to be 2 tribes, which we know it's not. Maybe they'll swap early though. So we'll see. Yeah, I love the 2 tribes. So I actually like this episode a decent amount. I thought it was very telegraphed in what was going to happen, but I enjoyed it nonetheless.
Yeah, and you know what? I do like because obviously with 2 tribes, it's easier to follow the storylines more than if it's 3 tribes. And it didn't certainly help that the former Blue tribe has been reheating Oolong's nachos in terms of going down to just 2 people. So I really feel like we really don't know everybody else super well. I feel like we knew some of the dynamics on Red and Yellow, but we didn't know a ton. And I gotta be honest, as you and I are both very big fans of the show. Even I feel like tonight I was kind of struggling with. I was like, who was that person, or kind of like who are they aligned with? But I think now with this true tribe format, it's a little bit easier to follow. So I think this war between Red and Yellow will continue, and we'll see that to the merge.
Yeah, I mean, we get into a few things. I tend to agree with you in terms of like I think of the last few seasons, they've been very good at evenly distributing the edit early on in terms of who's shown. And I feel like I know everyone pretty quickly. And this season, I don't feel that way. And we'll get it. I don't want to lead off with that. That's definitely a main talking point for this episode, though. So I'm excited to talk about that. But let's get right to the vote at the end. I mean, I thought that this was a pretty telegraphed Matt vote pretty much the whole episode. I felt like that Matt, we didn't really see much of him at all the last few episodes, except for that, like maybe he was going to have an alliance with Steven, and that's pretty much all we saw. And, sure enough, today we get a lot of him in his boot episode. We get him telling a story that like he perceives to maybe be funny and like everybody else is like not really laughing. And then like he says to the end that same story, he's like, oh, like I was going to maybe lie to people in my job, but I'm not going to do that. And I was like, oh, well, why would you even tell them that? Right. So it was just like we got kind of a montage of what was just as the players on the island described, incredibly sloppy gameplay from Matt basically the entire episode. So I felt like it was pretty telegraphed in what was going to happen. And that's what ended up happening. So again, I don't need, as a longtime Survivor fan, I think simple boots are fine like this as long as, you get the full story. But this seemed like a pretty classic pre-merge telegraphed boot to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, like we've seen in previous tribe swaps in history, you have people that get swapped into the minority and they're kind of on the outs, and it's up to them to try to flip the vote in some way and break up the original tribes. And unfortunately for Matt and Jason, they couldn't really do that. So they kind of had to, in a way, go against each other. And, Matt gets voted out. It was a 4-2-1. And what basically happens here is the former Red tribe, which is, Rizzo, Savannah, Jawan, and Nate, they split their votes between Matt and Jason in case of an idol. And then Matt, for some reason, still thinks he can vote for Nate just to make a statement. Nate wasn't going anywhere, but still votes for Nate anyway. So it's 4-2-1. And Dylan, you made a good point, right? Where it's like, Matt kind of didn't do himself a ton of favors, but to be fair, Jason didn't do a ton of favors either. I think they both gave the majority, reasons to vote them out, right? Like Jason is like, oh, I'm going to probably stay loyal to Yellow and I might use my shot in the dark. So he's really not giving Savannah and Rizzo and people anything to work with. And then Matt, of course, I give him credit for trying to make a play, but it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to vote for Nate, and then Jawan runs right back to Nate. So they both kind of offer themselves up in a way, and it turns out that the tribe felt like, Matt was more of a danger to them than Jason was.
Yeah, I mean, I would have understood voting either of them out. I think that once it was pretty clear that Matt was like heavily in the process of creating a blind side, it became more clear that, they were going to target him. That being said, it's like, I don't think either of these yellow players on this tribe played particularly well tonight, right? I think that Matt, they showed being pretty sloppy, as I said before. And Jason, like you said, was completely kind of closed off. They were describing it as like he was cagey. He was completely closed off to the idea of really working with Red. And his pitch to them was like, if you keep me around, I'll make sure that Yellow does not steer votes towards you. As in, like, I'm not going to work with you, but I'll try to keep you guys around as long as possible. Yeah. So, I mean, look, man, if you're on Survivor, you're going to have to lie eventually. You're going to have to lie at some point. I'm not really sure what his strategy was here. Because Jason's basically put himself in a spot where he better hope that they win immunity next episode. Otherwise, he's not probably, like almost definitely cooked, right? So, yeah, I thought it was a poor job by him. Luckily, he gets saved by Matt being just a little bit more erratic than he was. So, yeah, I mean, what were your thoughts on Jason's play this episode? Because I honestly, I was pretty high on him after the first episode. I expected a little bit better from him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? And I know a former Survivor player has said this, and I for the life of me can't remember who it is, but it's obviously been somebody who's been through a swap, which clearly narrows it down a lot. But I remember in the past someone being like, once you swap tribes, like maybe in the back of your mind, maybe you feel like you can go back to your tribes, but for the present moment, you need to kind of like play in the present. And at the present, this is your new tribe. You can't just blindly be loyal to what you came from, because as we saw with Jason here, that kind of almost got him voted out, right? Where it's like, if you're not showing any flexibility to voting with your new tribe mates, they're going to be like, oh, well, we can't really trust you because you're just going to go back to what you had before. You need to really adopt like the new tribe as what you have to work with. So, and also, by the way, Jason and the former yellow tribe have not been doing themselves favors, right? They chant like Hina, like going into every challenge. Like clearly you're presenting that you're a very unified front. So I feel like that doesn't, make you seem like a very flexible player. So yeah, if you're going into a tribe swap, you have to be flexible and open to working with people. Jason and Matt both should have been like, look, we're in the minority. And also, by the way, it's a 4-2-1 split. It would be different if this was like a 3-2 split and they only had to swing one vote. Sure, maybe they could have swung Jawan, maybe, but like when you're kind of that far out of it, if you don't see a crack right away, you have to just almost be like, look, I'm willing to work with you, and I'm fine to vote out Jason if I need to. Like, and so that was kind of like their mistake in a way.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting that again, we got a 4-2-1 on both sides. Sophie goes with where it's majority red. Alex goes where it's majority yellow. Sage and Shannon are in the Jason and Matt role of the other split. We kind of saw a little bit of that tribe for a little bit. And here's where I'll get into the conversation that I was going to get into before, that you kind of alluded to at the very beginning, saying you don't know a lot of people. You feel like you don't know everyone really that well. And usually the last few seasons, they've done a good job of letting us know. I'm a little bit worried. It's not even worried. I feel like this is just going to happen. I mean, it seems very telegraphed of what's going to be the more dominant side and which side is going to end up coming on top of the so-called red and yellow war, right? And I think a very common thread of these 3 tribe seasons is you've seen one disaster tribe and then you get a war between the 2 tribes. Yeah. That being said, I do think in previous seasons, it's not exactly telegraphed of which powerhouse is going to win, right? And it just, and there's no reason for them to certainly paint it one way or the other. That being said, I think, a lot of the Survivor fan base knows, who that Savannah and Rizzo are going to be on Survivor 50. So I think that people are already coming in very aware, like, oh, they're, wonder what they're going to do in this game. And then, they're not even hiding it in the edit, right? They are really, really giving a lot of airtime to the red tribe. And And I feel like I don't know anybody on the original Yellow Tribe. Like, I feel like I haven't seen any of them. Maybe it's just because they haven't been shown because they've been completely dominant, right? But when you think about it, Red has not gone to tribal until tonight. A lot of them went, but they haven't gone to tribal either. And yet we know the entire tribe pretty well. I feel like I know, even outside of Rizzo and Savannah, I feel like I know Nate pretty well. I feel like we've got a lot of Jawan. I feel like we've got a lot of Shannon and a decent amount of Sage. Whereas Yellow, we got a lot of Steven in episode 1. And other than that, like, we got a little bit from Christina today. We've really nothing from Sophie on Yellow. We know she found the idol, but not much from her. And then Jason and Matt, we didn't really get much from Matt till tonight, and Jason's been like kind of a little bit here and there, but nothing crazy, right? So I don't know. I just there's something about this where it's like I wish they had portrayed it where it was going to be an actual war. Whereas I feel like, especially tonight, with one of the Yellow finally going home in Matt, I just feel like the way the season is going to go, the direction seems kind of obvious to me. But I'm curious to know what you think, because I find it very interesting how they're editing it that this red-yellow war is coming, yet we don't know anything about the Yellow side.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, again, like you said at the start of the podcast, it comes back simply to when one tribe loses every single challenge, they're just going to dominate the edits. And again, I said this also episode 1, no offense to the players or casting, but it doesn't help that you put 5 women with the same letter, an S. It's very hard to keep track of. Sophie, Shannon, Savannah,
Sage.
Like, it's hard to keep track of. And like you said, Yellow Sophie, when she spoke on the map today, I genuinely was like, I don't think I know who that is. And I realized, I'm like, oh, that's the other Sophie. So it makes it hard to follow. And again, I think also just like, again, maybe it's just also 3 tribe fatigue. I think this is why we need 2 tribes. We're getting just fatigued of the 3 tribe formats. I mean, I think in terms of Yellow, the ripple effect that I want to see from this episode is in episode 2, I forgot that Matt actually had kind of made an alliance with, Christina, Steven, and MC. I think Steven and MC were portrayed as like the tight duo on Yellow, but they also had pulled in Christina and Matt. So, I mean, I don't know if that was just like a temporary thing or that was like an actual alliance, because I guess we'll see the reactions when they come to the next challenge and they see Matt's gone. It's like, okay, well, all right, they took a swing at Yellow. We're going to take a swing at either Shannon or Sage. Problem is, Dylan, I think for Shannon and Sage, or for the Red Tribe, like they clearly, I don't think like each other. I think everyone's targeting Shannon on the new Blue Tribe. And then I think in the episode preview, Sage is also like, Shannon's got to go as well. So,
yeah, I could see a world where they do vote out Sage. I don't know. I think that Shannon has an advantage in that tribe where, like, I think they kind of showed that people were kind of eating it up, whatever she had to offer. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen there. I do think that one of those 2 goes next week, though, because they seem to be setting a pretty decent groundwork for that to happen. And maybe they just need to fill airtime, right, and try to show the other tribe a little bit. But I think that that's probably what's going to happen next week. I want to talk about, and again, it's a pretty straightforward episode, so it's not like we're going to have a ton of dynamics to break down. It's not like we're going to have a ton of this crazy vote to break down. There was not a crazy vote, right? But I want to talk a little bit about the Blue Tribe here, the original Blue Tribe. So we had 2 left going into today. Alex gets put in the winning tribe of the episode, the old Blue Tribe, or the new Blue Tribe, I should say. Sophie gets put with the Yellow Tribe, in which the red has a majority. And I mean, I think my thought early on in this episode was like, it's been a long time since I've seen this domination of an edit from somebody this early. Sophie has taken up like 50% of the season on my screen. I feel like, I don't know if you get that feeling as well. We know her so well, right? And then, she gets put on the tribe with the red majority, and she immediately aligns herself with the majority there. They immediately take her in, and she aligns with who else? Savannah, right? She aligns
So
with,
So I can
yeah,
tell you right now, I just pulled up the confessional counter. So
yeah.
Sophie, obviously, because Blue keeps losing, Alex and Sophie by far have the most two confessionals of the season. Alex is at 31, Sophie's at 29. So actually, she's two behind Alex, but they're like neck and neck.
Is
And
that
then the next
after tonight?
after tonight, yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
And then
I was gonna say
and then obviously, like you mentioned, Dylan, our next two highest people are Savannah and Rizzo because they're getting a heavy edit for 50. So basically, Dylan, like here's where it gets crazy, where they have 31, 29, 25, 22. Everybody else, because then the next highest was Jake with 18. Jake got a pretty good early edit for them before the medevac. Dylan, everybody else is between like 4 and 12.
right.
So it's
Yeah,
like it's very heavy towards like those four people.
as soon as what I was gonna say is as soon as I saw Sophie align herself with Savannah and Red, but Savannah specifically, I immediately said to myself, I was like,
Yeah.
here it is. This is the dominant alliance of the season. This very well could be your season 45 Red that just rolls through. And I really think that that's going to happen this season. Again, it's super early, but like I'm really, really high on Sophie right now. I think that, not only is she getting a positive edit, not only did she survive the disaster tribe, which again is a huge boost up for whoever always gets through there, right? So her and Alex shoot up my board right now. Everybody likes her. And again, that could be a double-edged sword later in the game, but he's in a great, great spot right now. And I think the biggest thing and the biggest positive for her is that it's not just like everybody likes her, but people see her as super valuable as an ally, right? She's like a free agent. Savannah says like, oh, she reminds me of one of my friends back, like one of my friend or some of my friends back home, like somebody I would be friends with, right? So there's like an instant personal connection there. You hear Nate be like, Sophie is an open book. I feel like I could trust her. You also, Savannah says something very similar. Like I have a good feeling that Sophie's telling me everything that's going on and telling me the truth. And Sophie did say, oh, Alex played the idol last tribal council. So she really did say everything, right? So I think Sophie's doing just such a great job of integrating herself into this new group. And I mean, it's pretty clear to me that I think Sophie's going to make a pretty deep run potentially with that group. So I just wanted to call that out because I think Sophie's a huge contender for the season right now.
Yeah. Again, not trying to read into the confessionals, but like those four clearly are like the main characters of the season. And I do think that they are all going pretty far. One thing that Sophie has to be wary of, and I guess same first thing for Savannah, is like, obviously you have the former Red Alliance of Rizzo, Savannah, Nate, and Shannon. Now Shannon's obviously on the other tribe, but the other three Alliance members are here. Assuming Shannon makes it through the swap, that those four will kind of like reconnect at the merge potentially, and that they're going to be, like you said, the powerhouse, maybe like the new Reba that dominates. What they have to be careful of, if you're Savannah and you're Sophie, is a savvy player might pick up on like, oh, Savannah has her alliance. She's also picked up Sophie as a piece. And that's a very valuable piece to have on the board. So I could see a situation where Savannah and Sophie seem like pretty savvy players. I feel like they can make their way towards the end. But I could also see a scenario where like eventually someone like a Rizzo or a Nate, or even if you go back to Yellow, even someone like MC or Steven is like, who do we want to put our votes on for Red? Rizzo, Nate. Maybe we should go for Savannah or we should go for Sophie because we got to break that pair up. So if people catch on to that they're close, they got to just be wary of that. So
yes, for sure. I'm curious. One thing that I've been thinking, and I saw somebody wrote this on Twitter, Reddit, somewhere, but especially after just watching Survivor Australia versus the World, I see a lot of parallels between the way that Savannah talks and the way that Parvati talks. I don't think they're like exactly the same by any means, but there's like, I can't exactly pinpoint it, but there is a similarity between them. And I think the way that they like approach the game, I said this to my brother and he brought up an idea that potentially is like that they are both the same in the fact that they like very much like act super like friendly to other people and like super open to other people, to the point where like they're basically like getting a lot from that other person and then reading them from that. I don't know if that makes perfect sense, but there's some kind of similar social aspect going on there. So I think that's super interesting. I'm wondering if when they casted her, that's what they had in mind.
Yeah, and there's also some similarities also between Savannah and Parvati a couple episodes in, and like you said, we're not comparing, Savannah, 4 episodes in to one of the greatest of all time. But like, no, I do see some similarities there, but also I see some similarities with Dee as well. I feel like it's the confidence. There's definitely a lot of confidence that Savannah has. She's kind of also like no nonsense, where like when Juwan in episode 2, accidentally took her bag, she did not, take that lightly at all. And then this episode, she's like, I don't trust Matt. Matt seems like a nice guy, but he's dangerous. Like she's a very confident player, and obviously we'll see what she does or what it takes for her to get to 50. But no, I mean, she has the confidence about her. And like you said, the way she talks, and maybe it's like she said, her interviewing skills or whatever background experience she has, she clearly is able to make those connections with people, but also, like you said, read into them and pick up on that and use that as well. So,
yeah. I mean, the season 50 reporter off between her and Rick Devens should be interesting. I'm sure they'll have a joint newscast confessional back and forth. We know Jeff loves that. Anyway, but one thing I do want to ask you, Ryan, is I'm thinking about it back now, and Matt did make a decent pitch to Juwan in terms of blindsiding Nate. Right. I do want to give I don't think Matt played like as sloppy as they made it seem. I think that because he was going home, they made it pretty like clear, like he's playing sloppy. I think in reality, he had the right idea, right? They were screwed no matter what, one of them. He had to try something. And he did happen to pick up on the fact that Juwan was on the bottom of that alliance, right? Which Savannah even admits, like, well, Juwan kind of is on the bottom. Like Matt's kind of right about that. And I think that where Matt really screwed up badly is that he said this at Tribal Council, is he did not realize that Sophie was brought in by the Red Tribe, right? So that was his big mistake. And, it's interesting because I do think that had he potentially established a relationship with Sophie beforehand, and again, I don't really know if he stood a chance to develop as close of a relationship with her as Savannah did, just based on who Savannah is and who Matt is. Like, that's probably unrealistic. But I think that in terms of Juwan, he maybe should have been thinking a little bit more into this. I think that like as soon as, and we see in the preview next week, like, I don't think he's by any means safe if they go back to Tribal Council. I think, likely it would be Jason, but it seems like Savannah really doesn't like him. And I just think it was so interesting that he I thought he was going to go with it with Matt at first. And then he they go right into a confessional with Juwan, and he's like, oh, I had to act like I was eating it up, but I'm not actually like, and I'm like, all right, like, I'm like, you maybe should have been entertaining that a little bit more. So I don't really know if Juwan is in the know of what's actually going on. But that seemed like a pretty decent opportunity for him that, again, I don't think they would have ended up having numbers because of Sophie, but it was interesting to me that he completely turned that down right away.
Yeah, no, I think it was something that Juwan could have considered, but again, I feel like that's also me giving credit to Nate, Rizzo, and Savannah, where it's like maybe Juwan doesn't really know that he's on the outs. I mean, I need to go back and look and see if Juwan has ever like verbally said, I kind of feel like I'm towards the bottom. I mean, like obviously, like you said, Savannah kind of admitted like, yeah, he's on the bottom. But, I don't know. I mean, and then Juwan's like, yeah, Matt's trying to do whatever he can to save himself, but I don't know how much Juwan fully knows he's on the bottom. But you're right, he should have considered it. And again, like you said, Matt made a good pitch identifying who's on the bottom in Juwan, and obviously Jason will vote with him. So that's 3. And technically, you could use Sophie as a 4th, and then go 4-3. Hypothetically, if they do split their votes, right, between Jason and Matt, you also could do a 3-2-2. So that's also another option that he could have done. Obviously, I think his other big mistake, Dylan, was he also goes to Savannah and says, hey, Savannah, and this is just him throwing out ideas out to confuse them. He's like, yeah, maybe we'll vote Sophie. And I'm like, maybe you shouldn't have pitched Sophie to Savannah. It's not the best idea. So right there, that kind of sunk him. And then also when Juwan ran back, that basically was it for him. But I give him credit. Like him identifying Juwan as a vote maybe could have made something happen. But you also said earlier, like, if he really was playing, 40 chess, he would have scooped up Sophie immediately, but maybe that wasn't going to happen. So,
yeah. And I'm going to keep talking about this specific new yellow tribe because, again, we really didn't get much from the other tribe today. I'm super high on Nate and Rizzo at all as well. Like I know they didn't play the biggest role. We did get the Rizzo finding the idols, so that was significant. And Nate was the target that he found out about. I think Nate is is certainly a big threat in this game. I mean, he is the type of guy that I think he's like the dad of the season, and everyone really likes him. And he's one of those guys that, like, if he gets to the end, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Joe of last season, except for like I think that Nate has like a lot more game than Joe. Nate is very like strategically tapped in, and he's like very likable, right? So that's like the type of guy that if you bring him to the end, you're in trouble. So I think, for the others in that alliance, for the Rizzos of the world, the Savannahs of the world, the Sophies of the world, that's the perfect person to be aligned with, because I think that, like I get like you said, like the blind side that was attempted by Matt tonight was aimed at Nate and not at the others. That's going to end up paying dividends probably later down the line for them. But I'm super high on Nate as a player. I just been pretty impressed with what I've seen so far. I don't necessarily think he fits the stereotype for like a dad on a season.
Well,
he seems very strategically tapped in. So.
Well, not only does he come off as a dad, but Matt even said this kind of like in his pitch or in his confessional. He's like, I also kind of see Nate as the leader. And I think whenever we do merge, again, who knows what the numbers are going to be. I would assume, by the way, thinking about like new era trends, if we're at now 13 people, I'll assume we get one more vote, then we get the merge or the fake merge or whatever we get nowadays. But yeah, if we do end up in a scenario where yellow and red still have like pretty close numbers, like let's just say for the sake of argument next week, the new blue tribe loses and Shannon goes, and now the numbers are even again, like 5-5-2 overall, and then they merge. like if Matt was perceiving Nate to be kind of like that leader, I could see yellow going after Nate first. So to your point, people like Nate. Nate's likable, but he also comes off as that leader in a way. And I do think that Nate would, to me, like Nate, I like Nate, watching Nate. To me, he's right now screaming like early merge target or early merge boots.
Yeah, I think so as well. Right? He's like, again, anybody who like you're perceiving them as the leader or a threat down the line this early is always a pre-merge target, I would think. So, yeah, I'm just trying to think of other stuff, but we spoke. I just mentioned before, Rizzo got the idol. I thought it was like almost too much of a team effort to find the idol, but that being said, I think it just goes to show like how close that group is right now. And again, I see no way that group, unless Shannon goes out next episode, maybe like that would be a big detriment to them. But it's hard to see how that group doesn't barrel through long into the game.
Yeah, so I do think that yellow tribe will barrel through, but like even if they lose again, like you said, I mean, Jason's clearly on the bottom, but I would not count out Juwan maybe catching some votes, or Savannah ends up flipping it on Juwan. I think Sophie's been brought in to that former red tribe, so I think it really is now Nate on that tribe, at least Nate, Rizzo, Savannah, and Sophie. And I feel like if it's not Jason, it's going to be Juwan. Because Dylan, keep in mind, not only does that Red Alliance know about Rizzo's idol, he even told Sophie, he's like, hey, Sophie, I found the idol as well. So Sophie's fully integrated with them. So that's going to be like that power dynamic going forward.
Yeah. So one other question I had, so we've kind of just gone through all the dynamics on that new yellow tribe. I'm just curious in general, because it has been a couple of weeks since we've podcast. What are your general feelings on the season so far? It's always very tough to, this season has a lot working against it, right? It's the season before 50. It's like seeing, the movie before Avengers Endgame. It's like, all right, like everybody's already looking ahead to that movie, and this movie's like, it's a kind of like a preview or like a like appetizer for the main course, which is Survivor 50, right? So I think that this season has that working against it, but even so, I'm just curious to hear what you think, because I have a few thoughts on this season compared to some of the ones that came before.
Yeah. I won't mince words. I do think it's slow so far. I mean, obviously, like you said, it has a lot working against it. I got to give them some grace. Like, obviously, it's not easy going up right before 50 and everyone's looking forward to it. Just like similarly, like I remember back when Nicaragua was there and people were like, oh, like we're kind of getting like a restart season in a way after one of the greatest seasons of all time. So it's never easy to start or follow a legendary season. Obviously 41 kind of got the same treatment as after 40. So I give them credit, but like you said, it's slow. I mean, I think Dalton Ross even said he ran a poll on Twitter like an episode or two ago, and like at least almost half the poll said like they would give it like a C so far, or like a letter grade of C. So it's a little slow, Dylan. And I think the main reason why I would say it's been slow so far, other than, of course, the shocking medevac of Jake last week, is other than that medevac, I can't think of one, and maybe this is harsh, I can't think of one interesting thing that's happened so far or one memorable moments. Like if I want to go back really quickly to the first few episodes of the New Era seasons, you know, what did you have? You had, 46. You had, the Jelinski episode and the Banu saga. Then 47 had, the big Genevieve flip on Keyshawn in episode 4. And then you had 45 had, Hannah's quit. Well, you had 2 quits technically, but then you also had like the Sabaya blind side. Like you see my point where in recent seasons we've had something to latch on to enforce 4 episodes. And I feel like other than the medevac, I can't think of one memorable thing I'm going to remember so far.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's been it's definitely been slow. My take on it is like I compare this season to the others, and just comparing casts. And I don't want to be too harsh on the casting of the season because I think it's been 4 episodes, and it takes quite some time sometimes to get acclimated to a new cast. And then like for me at least, and then I could think a season is slow, and then all of a sudden, like episode 7, 8 comes around, and I'm very, very into it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think for me, I look at this cast, and I compare it to like okay. So I thought 47 was the best season of the New Era, in my opinion. And I think back to that cast, and it was a very evenly distributed cast in terms of like Survivor players, right? I thought that it was really deep in terms of talent, right? It was a deep roster, as those who watch sports like to say. You had Rachel, you had Sam, right, who were strategic beasts, right? I know Sam ended up on like the bottom at the end, but he was very good strategically. He was a great character. And then you also had your Gabes early on, who was like kind of just strategy. You had the Red Tribe with obviously Genevieve with the making basically the entire game making big moves. You had Soul, who was a fan favorite. Even on Blue, you had the Carolines of the world, who again like was not a real big character on the season, but like everyone really liked her, and she clearly had a lot of strategy to her, right? So they were just I think that cast, in my opinion, was like very deep in terms of talent. And maybe this is just because we haven't seen the Yellow Tribe that much, but I'm getting top heavy vibes from this season in terms of like cast members, right? Is like, I feel very good about those original Red members. I feel very good about Sophie. I think, a lot of the bottom half of the cast, I have not got great vibes from so far. Again, a lot of them have been voted out so far, pretty much, which I think that's a good sign. Sometimes
good boot order, I'll say that.
when the boot order is good, it can lead to a crazy post-merge. And you remember the one thing that Jeff said before the season, he's like, the post-merge is ridiculous in this season. I believe that's what he said. He said,
honestly, Dylan, I hate to say this, but like, even though we've had a slow start, I think you would agree we need, if you had to pick one, you would rather have an exciting ending than an exciting start. Because look what happened last season. Last season was, and I know your brother will disagree, would say last season the pre-merge was actually kind of exciting for 48. I thought the pre-merge of 48 was actually kind of fun. and then the season just fell off a cliff in the merge.
Right.
If Jeff's telling the truth, I'd rather it be this. I'd rather us kind of slog for now, and then we get like a hit the ground running like 46 type merge. I would love that.
Right. I think 46 is potentially a good example. Is like we had a lot of. I thought the season started super slow. I remember like episode 5, 6, 46.
Because purple just like kept losing over.
Episode 5, 6, I was like, I don't really like this season. And then all of a sudden, I just like it flips for me. And I think we got a bunch of great episodes in a row. I remember going home with the Idol. I was like, whoa. And all of a sudden, you had your Qs, your Charlies emerge, Kenzie's, right? And I was like, Venus. And I was like, this is like a really good post merge. I think we could be headed into that direction this season. But right now, I'm just not, I'm not feeling it right now. So we'll see what happens. I think there is potential for this season. I do like a lot of the people who have been shown a lot. So
yeah, it's been slow, but like you said, I'll reserve judgment. Like for me, like once we get to the merge and once we get like a merge vote or two in, and now we're at like final 10 or whatever. At that point, I'll be able to be like, all right, this season can start to turn around. Because if it really hasn't turned around by then, it's not going to turn around. But I really do hope that, like Jeff said, once we get to that, second half of the game, it really starts to pick up. And again, maybe, the slower start is going to lead to, more of these, like you said, power players in the game kind of going at it. Because I would not say the final four will be, Alex and Sophie and Rizzo and Savannah. I do think there's going to be some shots taken at what points. So I do think we're going to see a war. And we're going to see, heavy hitters finally going for each other.
Yeah, no, for sure. I for sure expect that. Is there anything that we haven't hit on? I know it was a pretty simple episode. There was no journey. There was, I thought the immunity challenge was kind of underwhelming. It was just like go zigzag in a boat and just like bring blocks and stack them. Like there was nothing that much to it. So again, thought it was a pretty simple episode. Don't think there's like too much to recap. So I feel like we've hit on most things. Is there anything else, Ryan, that you wanted to hit on tonight in what it was a pretty simple episode?
Nothing from this episode. Dylan, I'm actually kind of sad we didn't get to recap last week. I'm still kind of reeling from last week. I mean, that medevac was still crazy. I mean, we don't have to go a lot into it, but I still can't believe that happened after all this time that, no one's ever been, medevaced because of an animal, injury before. And also with the vote last week with Jeremiah getting voted out, I actually was not sure that Alex was going to use his idol. I really thought there was a chance he wasn't going to use it. Turns out he didn't need to use it anyway. But heading into that vote, I remember I was like, he's going to go down in history if he doesn't use it. And, he goes out like, in a blindside, but he didn't need it anyway. So I think I had more thoughts last week, but anything else from your end?
Yeah, I guess last week the 3-person vote was kind of interesting. I think that's like you don't see that often. So I like that. I think I liked last week the showing the behind the scenes. I think everybody was a fan of that. Again, super unfortunate situation. I hope that in season 51 or 52, Jake is back, or 53. Who knows? Again, fingers crossed for a lot of eternity seasons in the 50s, but we don't need to get into off the beaten path with topics here. But yeah, I hope Jake gets another chance because what an absolute freak injury that was. And I do think, as you said, it's been a good boot order, but I do think we lost who would have been one of the most entertaining players in the entire season from medevac that early. So that's not great.
Also, Mike Bloom posted on Twitter, the irony was not lost upon us that Jake is gone and Sophie still loses a shoe.
Yeah, I was literally thinking that the whole time. I'm like, the shoe bandit, it lives on.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they found her shoe later on the beach and brought it back to the challenge. I was like, what is going on?
To me, I was like, what are the odds that her shoe just washes back up? Like that's crazy to me. But.
Yeah. Well, at first I thought it was interesting because I was like, she was like wearing somebody else's shoes that got voted out. And I was like, had they just leave their shoes there? Like they wore other shoes to tribal council. Like, I guess, thank God that her shoes were found. Cause she must have like, it didn't look like she panicked. I would have bugged out if I didn't have my shoes. I'd be like,
but that's a good point though. Cause it's like, and I don't want to fourth wall break the show, but clearly they're not going to have somebody be disadvantaged. Like you have to be able to run a challenge in sneakers. Like I got to think, if you can't use someone else's shoes, I got to think production must have like backups or like, because like if you lost your shoes, like what they're gonna make you run a challenge like barefoot. I feel like they got to have like a backup supply or something.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is like I think if she lost her shoes truly,
Yeah.
she didn't get them back. I don't know. I feel like they maybe would have. Well, she was wearing somebody else's shoes, so maybe they let it go. But if she didn't have shoes, you would think that they would give her shoes and then also just not show any of it in the
Yeah.
in the TV show, right? Because like you can't. It is Survivor, but you can't have somebody running challenges barefoot,
Yeah.
walking around everywhere barefoot. I mean, it's like legit dangerous. Obviously, they could get foot infections. Another medevac, you don't want that. Just a weird situation all around that I have not seen happen. So yeah, it's hilarious that her shoe watched back though.
Yeah, no, but I didn't have any other thoughts from this episode of the ones that we missed. But again, I actually don't remember that much from the preview either. I know we don't go a lot into the preview since some people do and don't watch. The only thing that I remember from the preview was like Sage rolling her eyes at Shannon. So it's kind of like if that new Blue Tribe loses, I guarantee you Shannon and Sage are not going to try to flip the vote together like Matt did. Like they're going to probably just say like vote for each other. That's probably what's going to happen if Blue loses.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, that's all I got for today. We will be back hopefully at some point next week. We will see. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm hopeful for the rest of the season, I should say.
Yeah, no, we'll see what happens. Yeah. Otherwise, nothing else but grab your torches and head back to camp.
Good night.